Hello, and thank you for tuning in today. My name is Scott Townsend, and I'm a marketing director at Domo. Today, we're going to highlight an exciting customer story that showcases how this company is supercharging its business with Modern BI for All. Modern BI for All is about bringing data closer to where the work gets done, enabling everyone in your business to gather, interpret, and use data to improve their everyday work. This in turn helps to uncover new business value, grow an effective data culture, and build a modern, data-driven business. Our guest today is Scott Wagner, Director of Business Intelligence Strategy with Mayer Electric, one of the nation's largest wholesale distributors of electrical products and equipment. Scott will share how he delivers Modern BI for All to improve employee productivity, empower external partners, and deliver improvements to customer service and sales teams. After our discussion, there will be a short product demonstration, how you can see the Domo platform in action. If you have any question, there's a Q&A window on the right side of your screen. We encourage you to ask questions, and we'll do our best to answer them throughout the session. So with that, I'd like to welcome Scott.
Hey, Scott. How are you? Thank you.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for being here today. We're excited to hear your story.
Yep. Glad to be with you today.
So why don't we start by, if you could, tell us about what you do, both the role itself and how you're approaching the growing opportunities of Modern BI at Mayer.
Yeah, you mentioned my job title, Director of BI Strategy. And, day to day, what that really means is, I help our associates at Mayer and our leaders to use the tools that we have in place, the BI tools. And that is anything from introducing new content and helping them get started, or to direct them, push them to the right place in our tool to answer the questions they're after. But that also encompasses training and getting new associates online with the tools. I do want to mention that I'm not the traditional IT guy. I come from the business. I came from operations. And I think that's really what's helped me be successful in this role is the IT stuff I've been able to learn, but the business knowledge that I've acquired over 30 plus years in this industry has been really critical to understanding the why behind the content we create. So when I talk to our folks, we don't have to translate from one world to another. We're all speaking the same business language. But also should mention, I'm very involved in building the content, talking about the new questions and issues we encounter in the business. So again, that kind of encompasses a lot. I wear many hats.
Well, I understand that there was a time when you were known as the Excel guy on the ops team. Can you tell us about those days? What was that like?
Yeah, we had, when I first joined Mayer, I think it was the very first physical inventory I was a part of, I witnessed a problem happening in the count process. Basically, they were at a point where we'd entered a bunch of counts and they were trying to figure out where the discrepancies were to, do recounts. And the tool that they had in our system only showed variances by location. So you could have two items in two different places and it's often both, but really the net of those two is zero difference. So I raised my hand and said, hey, I can tell you we could find those issues real easily. So I exported the data to Excel, built a quick report where I aggregated by item, and we had a net variance report we could work with. They were impressed with that, and I think it actually led to a system enhancement that year, and we saved time in the process. So that kind of, I don't know, I've always been a little bit of an Excel nerd, and that was an opportunity to use my skills to help in a situation I was working through. And almost right after that, I started getting tapped on the shoulder for other issues that came up that, it seemed it was, hey, let's get Scott to look at this. And I started becoming a go-to guy for questions about data. And it wasn't long after that word started getting out in the company, and I was getting requests from different people, and I was managing multiple weekly reports. I even often had to have my laptop with me on vacation so I could keep those things going. And, again, I had a full-time job and I was still doing these things. And to get some of my time back, I started investing in my own knowledge in Excel, and I started learning things like Power Query and Power Pivot to be more efficient. But that automation not only saved me time, but it actually created more interest in the organization. and I started teaching others how to do those things. And that all really snowballed into an ever expanding manually managed list of reports and more requests for more information.
Got it. So it sounds like the beginning of the data journey at Mayer. Now, how did you find yourself as the leader of this data-driven revolution? What were some of the challenges that came up in this manual Excel-driven world, and what's it like now?
Yeah, and I should mention that the questions were really getting harder and harder as we went along. And one day I got a call from Mayer's president, Wes Smith, and he had heard about what I was doing, and he asked me if I could automate a report that he spends a couple days a month working on. It was an executive summary that he uses in board meetings. And it was, we've all probably seen these, it's a workbook he's had for years, and he's got all these formulas throughout, and he had to go through and manually update. So he asked me if I could automate it for him. So I went to work on that. We actually made some big improvements, and he really liked the end result. And I said, maybe we should look at long-term, instead of doing everything like this in Excel, a real analytics tool at Mayer. And it kind of became one of those be careful what you ask for situations. So he asked me to take on this role. And, you asked, what are things like now? We've covered so much ground in the 5+ years. We're in our 6th year now. We have content for just about every group in the company, from corporate, sales, operations, inventory management, purchasing, accounting, credit, IT, training, HR, marketing, and there's probably ones I've forgotten. And almost everybody in the company are folks that are interfaced with a computer most of their day. They all have access to Domo, and they have cards and pages to help them answer questions just by adding a couple filters. We also have curated content that delivers personalized view of the information, and it allows them to focus on, again, what's relevant for them. And as new business questions come up, they collaborate with me or a small group of Domo masters or super users, you could call them, where we design new content or help them find what they need. And then we also have a lot of content today that's focused on what I would call prescriptive analytics. It's the what you should focus on kinds of things.
Wow. Well, that's a really great sort of backstory, and thank you for sharing it. So I'd love to talk a little bit about each of the 3 critical elements that are at the core of modern BI for all. So there's data agility, data literacy, and intelligent action. Why don't we start with data agility, the ability to integrate complex systems, provide governance, distribute intelligence where it's needed. When we first met, you said that agility comes from understanding your environment and knowing what needs to happen next. What were some of the challenges that needed to be dealt with in order to get that understanding of your environment? Like pulling relevant data together, working with legacy systems, working across data silos, for example.
Yeah, we really starting out, most of the data that we needed was in our ERP system. And, the initial task was really just getting the connection started. So that was, more technical in nature. The hurdle for me was taking that understanding of Excel and translating it to a new set of tools. But also, I had help from our IT department to get that started. And then I had to also think about how the data was going to be consumed, how we want to filter things and look at groups of information. So I've had to build some custom dimensions, things that didn't exist in our systems. And then I really had to think about an overall architecture in how we want to structure information, the tools and data sets in Domo, and then think about future changes that I wanted to be able to update things easily or have some dimensions be dynamic so that as, let's say, customer account assignments change, they would flow through the system seamlessly. I also had to really be concerned with data integrity, quality, governance, those kinds of topics. And they're all essential for building trust in the organization, that when they look at the data, and they know they can count on it. And then honestly, simple things like naming conventions for fields, data sets, cards, those kind of things are really important. And, having the tools, all of that together is really the foundation to allow for that agility, Scott. I think that, Before we were really very much in the mindset of the data. It's data we've always had, but we've really never had a way to get to it. So this foundation was the start of that, allowing us to access the information so that we could move forward with decisive action.
Got it. That's great. Can you share a little bit about how you got started with Domo?
Yeah, in the beginning, I needed a lot of help from the Domo team, our customer success manager, some of the tech experts. And, I'm more of a visual learner, so I did use the knowledge base, but seeing things, so working with folks through the dojo and then a lot of hands-on really helped me. I had to learn tools like Workbench, Magic ETL, the Analyzer, and Beast Mode. And the examples that are in the dojo, I can't say enough for the folks that are there, that you could post a question and within minutes you've got lots of folks like me to help. It's really great. I did have to learn a little bit of SQL to get started, but pretty accessible. A couple books on that helped me. And then we also had a real breakthrough in engaging with other Domo customers. And some of those I met at Domo Palooza, but also other people I connected with through the dojo. And every one of those interactions yielded different benefits for their own reasons. And that just helped me see what was possible. Also, we made 2 different trips to Domo with different leaders at Mayer, our president Wes, and our CFO David, with the purpose of how does Domo use Domo? And again, all of that was gaining insight into the potential use case, how we could position information in front of our leaders and start to shift our culture to be more data informed.
Got it. Well, thank you. And so we've got this concept of BI leverage at cloud scale in record time, and I'd love to hear what it took, or what did it take to build on top of your existing systems and processes, and how did Domo enhance those investments for you?
Yeah, it started with, I mentioned we had quite a few Excel reports we'd been building over time. So those were kind of a pile of things we could work on to begin with. And we also had a legacy reporting system that was pretty complicated. Most folks in the organization, I think there were maybe less than 10 people that really even knew how to use it. But there were a lot of tools there that we could start with. Again, the SQL was built. It was a matter of taking the next steps. And one of the concepts I really promote at Mayer with our BI is crawl, walk, run. That starting with a raw table of data and massaging into a report is maybe the crawl stage. That if you can go from there and build on that into more advanced processing to give you, save those steps, but also tell you more. So for us, it was, again, starting with that foundation of let's get the data, and then using the Domo tools to build the final reports. And we were also using some of the tools in ETL to deliver outliers, exception-based reporting. We were also, some of the features in Domo that helped us were, displaying information with gamification in mind to get those competitive juices flowing among our teams that they want to see where they stack up against their peers. We also were using, or still are, PDP, personalized data permissions in Domo, pretty heavily to deliver that curated content. Show me just my stuff was really the thought. And then I really think in the grand scheme of things, Domo is a lot easier to learn than Excel, for instance. That it's very much more of a point and click kind of experience for the user where, we don't need to create a bunch of analysts for those folks to be successful with a great tool like this. So it makes the accessibility to the average person much easier to accomplish. Plus, mobile ready is really nice too.
That's great. Well, thank you. Why don't we move on to data literacy, which is all about driving a culture of data curiosity and confidence organization. Now, you mentioned earlier in a conversation together that over 800 of your 1,200 employees are currently using Domo to bring data-driven insights into their work. Can you talk about how that has changed the working culture at Mayer?
Yeah, there's so many examples I could give, Scott. There's pages for our meetings that we have with customers and suppliers, content that just makes it as simple as you add a filter for the customer or supplier or your geography and you're ready. So that really was a huge piece. It makes it very easy for people to prepare to the excuse of I don't have the data. It's really just right there. We also, quite a bit around special projects or initiatives in the company, that's always integrated in what we do. So that idea of data literacy, we put the data in front of them and they're almost invited or encouraged to use it. And that peer interaction helps us all get those juices flowing and talking about the data. And that's really led to more of a data first culture at Mayer, where when there's a question asked, folks are going right to Domo to find out, or you hear them say it that, hey, have you checked Domo? Let's go look at that. Let's find out what's really going on. And new projects, initiatives, like I mentioned, they almost always start with measurement tools to make sure whatever we're doing, we can see how we're progressing. We can make sure that after we get the implementation that it sticks, and having those measurements just keeps long-term focus so we don't drift back to that old way.
That's great. That's great. And I understand that you like to ask people what they're using spreadsheets for today to indicate where the data culture is. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, one of the things I did almost right away when we stood up Domo at Mayer was I started using the activity log, and now Domo Stats is a part of that. And one of the actions that's captured is export activity. So whenever someone exports something from Domo, there's a log for that. So what I'll do is I actually created a card called Who Exports Data from Domo. And once a month, I'll send out an email to those associates that have 15 or more exports in the last 30 days. And I'll just make an offer to them that, hey, I'd love to help you with the data work you're doing. I thank them for using Domo, but it's not always the case, but usually when someone's exporting a lot, they're doing work outside of Domo. And I just want to look for opportunities to help them streamline their work. And it's really proven out that we've found a lot of interesting cases there, and it's almost always not something that just one person will benefit from. So I'll engage that person, they'll let me know what they're doing, we'll build something together, and we then deploy it to the rest of the company. I always ask them, who else do you think could use this? And we'll get it out there, and I always leave the win in the hands of that person that brought it up. That's good for our culture, gives them some recognition for bringing things up. And I always ask, what's next? What's something else you're working on that we can tackle as well?
Wow, that's a really great show of partnership. And I imagine back in the Excel days, you didn't have enough time to offer that type of support.
No.
I also understand you've got super users throughout the organization. Can you give us some guidance around how you go about identifying and empowering those super users?
Yeah, that's a good segue. Some of those folks are the people I was just talking about that once I get started with somebody that it kind of, ramps up. But that we look for people that have curiosity around data. We also had, I told you my story about being the Excel guy. I wasn't the only one. There were other people at Mayer who were the informal data workers that built tools, and why not empower them with something like Domo so they can be really, really engaged with our data. And those folks, the Domo masters, I can't say enough about what they do. The very best content we have has come from those folks, and they're really a combination of, they have an understanding of a department or function that they're focused on, and they have trust with their peers and also really the greater organization. And then they have that interest or ability around working with data. So, a lot of that comes out of just conversation, me getting to know our people. But another key ingredient for those Domo masters is making sure they have a scope set for their work. And what I mean by that is, a good example, Nathan Haar is our Domo master for accounting. And I want to make sure that he focuses on that aspect of what we do. And if something comes to him that's outside of that scope, he'll collaborate with another Domo master who has that area, or he and I will work together to make sure that someone who really knows that thing, whatever that question is about, how best to answer it. And that really, I think, supports the idea, and you hear this from Domo, the single source of the truth. that it's coming from a credible leader around that data. And, they have the expertise. I mentioned the credibility. They're really the best people to address those needs. And it also allows us to be more strategic overall with our content, so we don't end up with just a cluttered mountain of cards in Domo.
Got it. Well, thank you for that. So why don't we walk through some of the business use cases that showcase intelligent action and the results that come with it. So can you talk a little bit about how Mayer's company-wide analytics is improving individual and team productivity?
Yeah, we've got, I think about our ticket writer users as a really good example, that those are folks that work in our branches, either at our sales counters or inside sales. And I actually filled that role at one point, so I'm very close to it. But I think about all the problems that can pop up with just orders that get entered and all the logistics and things that have to follow to get to the customer. So we built a page. There's about a dozen cards that are focused on detecting things that need their attention. And there's a concept, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, a lot of people know it, that for these ticket writers, 80% of the problems they might encounter come from 20% or less of the orders that they enter. So these tools or cards we have in Domo are focused on presenting those vital few potential issues in the cards so they can be proactive. And it's really as simple as the ticket writer will log in to Domo and the page is already set to where they're just going to see their transactions, and they scan the page for visual cues that we've built to let them know there's something that you need to look at. We started out in building that page around, I didn't want to just assume that I knew from my experience. I gathered a team of ticket writers from across the company doing different jobs in different places, and we talked about those challenges and what ideas they had to spot issues early. What would they need to do something about it early? And we took their feedback, built a page. We added some more folks, got more feedback, and refined further. And today we have about 300 ticket writer users, again, all through Domo's PDP, have a personalized view, and they can look at real quickly and easily everything that they need to deal with. And some of the benefits, Scott, that we've gotten out of that, it's really hard sometimes to nail down the specific measurement of these kinds of things, but the simple fact that they can work more proactively, I think, translates to improved customer service, that those workers, they have lower stress because they're dealing with problems before the phone's ringing, that there's really reduced rework for the organization, for those associates and for others, like in our warehouse operations, our drivers, and it's overall efficiency, really. The tool also has become a management tool that the branch manager, or let's say a sales manager, can look at their whole team in a single view. They can also focus on a customer, supplier in the same view. They can just change their filters. And it's also serving as an onboarding tool. When we have a new hire and they're going to work in a ticket writer role, the manager can work with them and show them how to use this page. And I'm very focused on the idea that if our associates have better tools, can they reach expert status faster? And I think the answer is obvious.
That's great. It sounds like people across the org are getting benefits from this, so really happy to hear that. How about outside of the company? Can you talk a little bit about the external data experiences you're providing to partners and what the impacts have been there?
Yeah, we have one of our biggest suppliers at Mayer, obviously strategic, is Schneider Electric. And when we entered into our partnership, there was a whole bunch of report expectations, things that we wanted to track together to make sure we were being successful. And that goes from everything from geographic performance, product categories, customer segmentation, lots of other things. And in the beginning, that was mainly used by our corporate leaders along with Schneider partners in meetings. And we have a Domo master for the content related to Schneider Electric. Scott Gertig is his name. And early on, he built a page, actually pages of content for those meetings. And now they've really become that sheet of music we all use in those meetings. So whether it's a corporate meeting with our president or it's a branch meeting somewhere in Florida, they simply use the content. They filter on what's relevant to them, their geography, and we can all have the same view, the folks at corporate, the folks in the field. And really the idea I mentioned a few minutes ago about crawl, walk, run, I think this is a really great example of a progression with that we build all this content in Domo, and the folks at Schneider have been very impressed with not only the information, but the presentation value and how we've got it deployed across the company all the way top to bottom. And we started talking more about what could we do next? What's the thing we could do that would stretch us? And Melissa Dubsky, she's our category manager for distribution and control. She asked, could we give some folks at Schneider access to our instance of Domo? And they actually have a strategic account manager, Jason Hendry. We purchased an external license through our service agreement, and he now has access to our instance of Domo. He can review all those reports that we just mentioned. And we have some standard content in Domo for any supplier meetings we have. And through PDP again, we made it so that he can see our business together. So he's able to explore on his own and be even more in touch with our business together through those tools. So that was kind of the second step in the crawl, walk, run. And then about a month ago, I was talking to Melissa again with Jason, and we just asked him the question, are there additional reports that you're building on your own with Schneider's data that we could put in Domo for you? And he offered 3 topics through discussion, and we now have those set up in Domo. And Jason he'll email it to us, and there's a tool in Domo. It's called the Dataset via Email Connector. So he'll just email a file to an email address, and it updates the content in Domo that we built for him. So he's having meetings at Schneider about our relationship, and he's able to show them the reports that he was using before. So it's really kind of graduated through those 3 steps. And again, I think it's made the relationship stronger and stronger at each stage, and it's influenced Schneider's view of Mayer as a technology leader.
That's incredible. I understand you have a few more use cases. Can you share some of the use cases across sales, customer success, or at the C level?
Yeah, one of the things this makes me think of, Scott, is there were so many things that happened during COVID that forced business to adapt quickly. And, having Domo allowed us to more closely track the changing environment. And it was for a while, there was a topic a day that were popping up, and we'd build more content in Domo to meet those challenges or help provide some measurement. And our leaders started a rhythm around reviewing those items, those KPIs, to stay close to those issues and understand what we might need to change. And that combination of having those tools in the hands of the leaders and the regular review, I think really taught us something. That we learned how, during COVID, to prepare for future challenges. And it's not just having experience to draw from to fuel instinct. We grew data literacy, and we became more skilled at making informed decisions. So, thinking about use cases, for us, it's almost, I want to say every day, Scott, but I know that's probably a lot, but we have an idea about, well, we're doing this thing, well, what if we did this? And that fuels, again, more and more discussion and more ideas. And it's amazing to me how far it's gone and how much it reaches into what we do every day. But there's, for the C-level in particular, they have a dashboard. It's called President's Key Metrics that we build it for a daily review. And there's tons of KPIs there that they focus on.
Can you share how all of this is giving your business the ability to act and react better than its competitors?
Yeah, I think it's really simple concept that when data supports your instinct, we talk about that a lot, that we operated on gut instinct in the past, but when the data does support your instinct, it builds confidence, and we're able to move forward more decisively. So they take action. So if you thought this and the data supports it, go. In cases where those two things disagree, data and your instinct don't match, we still end up with improved results. And I think that's because it encourages now deeper investigation, and we talk more about it. So the leaders are talking to each other, they're talking to partners at suppliers and customers to find out, well, why are these two things not matching up? And I think that's really what data culture is that we have the information and it fuels more exploration. So I think for us, again, I don't think our competitors are very much different from us in the way they make decisions. And the ones that are still doing what we did before, they have to be behind.
Well, Scott, your stories are really inspiring. It's amazing to hear how you've elevated your position and changed your company's relationship with data. You really are transforming how business is done at Mayer. So I'd love to wrap up with a few last questions. What are the biggest things you've learned so far on your journey with Domo, and how can people in your position get started?
Yeah, I think for me, I'd say stay focused on user adoption and engagement. Those two concepts, we looked at a lot of tools before we selected Domo, and that was something that really stood out to me, is that Domo was so easy to use. It was so user friendly that adoption would be more natural. The other concept really is change management, to think about how do you get people to let go of what they've always done and try something new. And we have to be in touch with what our users value, where their pain points are, their fears, their reluctance to change. And if we don't have those things, we don't have that understanding, and somehow we deliver meaningful content, it's just luck. So staying in touch with all that is very critical. And like I've said, I think including the practitioners, the people that actually do the work in content creation and evolution, is a key for success. And I never think that anything's really done. It can always be improved with more feedback. So we constantly try to roll forward. And again, that the crawl, walk, run, it always leaves room for and really invites the next level business question. And I think is a momentum engine for data curiosity, literacy, and engagement at Mayer. And it's the foundation of our culture.
That's really good perspective. Now, in relation to everything we've talked about here today, what do you see as the next step for Mayer?
It's really about more forward-looking analytics. We're beyond just descriptive and diagnostic analytics today. We are using prescriptive analytics, and we do have statistical outlier detection. We're using SPC charts, things like that. But the real frontier is the predictive piece. So we really need to get there. And like I mentioned before, the questions are still getting harder and harder. So I really believe we're going to need AI and machine learning and true data science to address those questions, really provide the answers our leaders and associates are going to need.
Absolutely. Okay, one last question. What recommendations can you share for people who want to challenge the traditional approaches to BI?
Well, I think, share my own story, think back to being the operations guy. I was really focused on exploring data and cultivating my own curiosity. So I think that's key for anyone if they want to do this kind of work. And the other thing you have to do, you have to be willing to set down your assumptions and just think about, are they supported by real data? It's far too often our bias can influence decision making, and I think it takes courage to admit that maybe your thinking on something is incomplete or maybe just wrong. And I'm also a really big fan of trusting the people that do the work to tell you where problems are and their ideas on how things need to get fixed, like the ticket writer example I gave you. That also drives engagement for them to take ownership, really what we're doing, and it's more likely they're going to tell their peers and others that it's working, they should try it. And like I said, the engagement we had with other Domo customers was awesome, and it still is. I'm constantly looking for that next company to engage with and maybe do a little show and tell about where we can learn together. And it really adds up to my overall belief that good understanding of the business is extremely valuable when developing BI content. That's why we followed the recommendations. There's a Domo white paper, The Road to Data-Driven Transformation, and that theme, has proven out for us in our experience with Domo, and our very best content has come from associates that are experts in their functional areas.
Thank you for that advice. This has been such an amazing conversation, and thank you so much for sharing your experiences and perspectives. I feel like we're just beginning to see what modern BI for all can do for you and the team at Mayer.
That's really great, Scott. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. So now let's watch a short product demonstration so you can see what Domo can do for you.